Hey everyone, welcome back to part 2 of our webinar, The Revenue Stack, Strategy, Development, and Data Done Right. I'm your moderator, Amanda Ortega, and we're here today with Eric Holtzclaw, who's CEO and founder of Liger Partners. He will be speaking more from a strategy lens. Sam Zeises, CEO and founder of LRND, represents more of a technical development angle. And Johnny Singleman, CEO and founder of Blu Mountain, is here to talk from the CRM and data side of things. So let's dive right into our conversation. So now let's talk about the effing up, Sam, that we were mentioning before. What is the cost of getting it wrong these days, if this is a return on investment picture?
It's an amazing point, and I know we have some notes to discuss later about AI and all that, but to weave it in a little bit, right? I mean, just because power tools came about doesn't mean that the average homeowner should start getting up on a ladder and fixing light fixtures and roofing and electrical boxes, right? So you sort of liken it to that concept in the sense that, like, a lot of these tools have become they look like they're as easy as Instagram to use, whether you think about like a design app like Canva or a vibe coding app like even Claude. The problems start to occur when people that haven't had the years of mistakes under their belt start building and building, and inevitably it's somewhat a house of cards, because if it's something as basic as analytics or the form connections and segmentation, right? There's also a ton of security. We're talking about, I think we were transparent about it being an insurance company and PII and HIPAA and all of those other things, which, if you're a startup, you may be a little bit more aggressive and bullish, but if you're a PE or a VC backed company, all it takes is one breach or one bad, something or other. I mean, the biggest companies in the world go down from time to time. And so, I think, what is the risk? Everything. You literally risk everything by not having an expert. So we're here for a reason, and thriving, by the way, all of us.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're saying that the siloed tasks create a lot of the risk. So the integrated go-to-market is not only a revenue driver, but it's also a risk preventer in some ways, making sure everything is tight and integrated. And Eric, what do you think about that? What is the risk of getting it wrong these days for companies?
Well, the rebuild, time is money. I know that's very cliche, but that is so true nowadays. And so if you get a false start, and then you can't always re-entrench. You can't always come back from it, just because it was out and now it's not working the way that you expected. You've got to rebuild it. You've missed a window of opportunity. A lot of the clients we work with have these golden times that they can, make their biggest dollars. There's renewal periods and places when people are ready to make the decision. They've been waiting for 12 to 18 months to make that decision. And now all of a sudden, in the key point, you're not ready to service them well, or they haven't seen you as the obvious choice. Your next opportunity for that is 12 months from now. Like, how do you explain that? Like, we don't do anything that's transactional. It's not I tell people we don't sell bottled water and we don't sell t-shirts. Like, that's not what we do. This is a considered sale. It's something that's important. It's something that I want to buy from another human being, because if they get it wrong, I want someone I can call and yell at or get them to fix it for me. So those are very expensive mistakes. If you're not ready at the right trigger to be there and to answer the questions. And, Sam was talking about the 10 touch points. I've read 21 in B2B, and also that 82% of the decision is already made by the time the person picks up the phone or reaches out to your salesperson. They've already decided they want to work with you.
So all you can do is lose it and fuck it up.
Right. All you've done is lost the deal. So, like, you want to be ready, and you want to have done all the right things to make sure you're part of that 82%. Because I can research things on my own. I've got an agent now that'll research for me and tell me what I should go look at. You got to show up in those results. You got to be right. And you can't You can't whiff it and then come back and be like, oh, sorry, you're not going to have, specifically in our category, you can run another ad campaign in a B2C and potentially like test other things, but that's where our clients are typically fishing in a pond, not the ocean, and they have, key points and key times in which they're going to make their year or not.
That's right. And I think AI is both making that pre-alignment conversation a lot faster, a lot easier for the buyer. But Johnny, I imagine that's a black box from your perspective.
Oh, yeah.
Data. So how does that all work?
Yeah, the big thing that I'm seeing right now is 60-page architectural guides completely generated by Claude and asking timeline to execute rather than a collaborative discussion. Some person did this in a vacuum, put it together, thought it was a great idea, thought it was very comprehensive and looked very thorough, ship it to me and say, cool, yeah, I need this. Like, when can we do this? I expect it to be done faster, better, more organized. What they don't realize is, it's not a part of their broader revenue design. And so they're just creating more chaos, more mess that inevitably you're going to go in and clean up, right? Like, the reality is you're just creating more fires and more mess, which is completely unnecessary, which is, on one hand, it's definitely an enablement tool, but on the other hand, it just creates chaos. So that is a major consequence on that side of things. And I do think when harnessed well, it can drive an enormous amount of value. You can do things a lot quicker. You should be able to increase output. You should be able to drive outcomes in a more meaningful way. For example, in marketing, right? I think one of the things that it does potentially pretty well is like content generation, and not necessarily end to end. I'm not saying it should be your end to end content engine, but it can help you identify ideas. Then you can work back and forth with it. From that, you can develop campaigns. You can ship that off to a copywriter, get it edited, be able to ship more campaigns. Those campaigns turn into more signals to sales, turn into more at-bats in front of your sales team. Like, I think there's a good amount of value that can come from it. But bringing it back, I think we're getting an enormous amount of just like chaos with people maybe not understanding or appreciating what's out there. And I think that if you look at AI, the best use cases and applications of AI is when they had the best set of training data. Like, I think a lot of the big reason that vibe coding is working is because, you look at GitHub repositories that have been basically training grounds for years. But if there's not a lot of knowledge about a topic and best practices around a topic, which I don't think there's a lot of great stuff on the internet, then I think you're going to end up with less than ideal results on the back end.
Yeah, it sounds like that contractor analogy we were using before about power tools seems really relevant here.
Yes.
Power tools and the idea, we talk internally all the time about being 1% off. If you're 1% off, you land in the wrong city. If you're 1% off, like that 1% is so important. And it's overlooked by the mass of the 90 to 95% huge document that really doesn't say what it should. And, I repeat the Malcolm Gladwell blink, the first chapter talks about people walking in and seeing a statue and knowing it's a fake. Like, that's what our job as organizations is, to prevent that. It's to see what's wrong, what's not going to be right. And for our clients to then trust us in, yeah, I know that this sounds great, but it's not appropriate. It doesn't work for what you're trying to accomplish. And that is the part that I'm hopeful, at least till the end of my career, is going to be AI to replace. So human in the loop.
And to add to that and go right into AI for a minute, we're speaking here 24 hours after OpenAI, the darling first to market, launched how many years later? 3, 4, or 5 years later, an in-house execution consultancy yesterday on CNBC called the OpenAI Deployment Company, backed by every big name consultancy and VC out there, which is, to me, an admission that this technology is useless without the right people managing it, shaping it, and executing on it. Incredible validation for any of us in the service provider space that use this. Those guys are going after Fortune 100s to start. There's countless SMBs in between and startups well funded that all need the same best practices and won't have access to the OpenAI deployment but it's just really kind of the industry at large admitting that this stuff doesn't do everything at the push of a button. And so, as it relates to AI, it is an unbelievable multiplier. It is an unbelievable assistant. It is an unbelievable power tool. But just like every power tool analogy before it, it is still a tool. And for now, at least until Elon Musk sets the robots loose on, on all of this stuff, we're, I think, still going to be needed. Although I am excited to have my children never touch a steering wheel from a safety standpoint. So, maybe we'll get to the point where you show up to work and your bot has already responded to every single email with the exact tone and nuance that you were. But for now, I don't know. We're still all here in real life, right? Is this thing on?
Yep. Real humans right here. So if you guys were able to talk to a sales or marketing leader right now that was going to be a client of yours, how would you advise them to incorporate AI? Would you have an answer for that yet? Or are you still kind of processing this whole thing?
Well, I gave us grace about, I will admit that I was kind of caught up until about a month ago and how we made the company, how do we make people in the company start using AI more effectively? And I've been through so many of these ways. I mean, Sam talking about the services, I've made a living off building services organizations around complex technology that people couldn't implement. That's literally what I've done. I've walked into SaaS companies over and over again who thought their product would just fly off the shelf on its own. And I'm like, yeah, no, they're going to have some people to help them implement that and make it work right. So for us at Liger, we have experience. We use the word experienced, meaning that we may be older. People who know marketing, we understand the concrete marketing principles, and I've given us grace on, like, why do we need to go figure out how to vibe code? Like, we should have an agentic layer that we trust, and we should have advisors that we work with to help us, understand what's the right thing next. Because our job every day is to focus on our customers' business and make sure that we're helping them move things up and to the right. So what are the impacts happening to them in the industry at a macro and micro level? How are their customers changing? What does that feel like? And that is a full-time job. That is a job in itself. And so then to go determine jobs to be done. So what are the things that we need to accomplish along that? And where does it make sense to implement technology, which sometimes AI is being confused with just process that we should have done forever, not necessarily thought. It's just like making things work and move more efficiently. So for us, it's business as usual. I know that business as usual with a new technology layer, which that's always been what it's been. When you looked at the internet, when you looked at social media, when you looked at mobile, any of those things, it's something that's impacting that. But at least for us, business as usual. Yeah. And that's what I would tell our clients: business as usual. What is your business and where are you headed? And then lean into the experts who really understand that. And maybe you will have some people on staff that understand that, but that would be true of them understanding potentially how to build an email campaign, or they might have a design background or whatever. And you often will use them for those kind of fill-in things, but you're still going to lean into an expert when you need the real heavy lifting done to get it right.
And I think, Johnny and I alike being sort of these specialists providers, Johnny in sort of the plumbing of the CRM and my team in the dev and technology development execution, a little bit of a different answer than Eric, because we're the ones sort of in the factory having to crank out all of the ideas and strategic thinking that Eric and the Liger team do. And I will say, to any prospective client, this is still the first inning of AI, and we want to do things in the best interest of our clients. And so if we can find a tool that can deliver something better, faster, cheaper, underline better, then we'll bring it to the client. And in some cases, they want to know the different options, and it's in our best interest to share that because we spread out the risk. But in some cases, they trust us to make informed, mature, experienced decisions. But as an example, data entry, like we just described in the project where we are migrating a 200-page website from WordPress to HubSpot, the old way of doing things and having to come back and tell the client, hey, we need 10 business days, 2 weeks to do this. I think it's borderline malpractice to not, if we didn't use software to do something like that in half or a fraction of the time. And so, this is where an owner-operated business, you're getting the team who cares more than maybe going to a Madison Avenue, firm that's part of a holding company, right? They, how much does that mid-level associate manager, VP actually care if it gets done better, faster, cheaper versus collecting the paycheck, right? We sort of have to roll up our sleeves and try harder. And so as part of that, I've got a Slack group with my 40 some odd, resources, which is just a free for all with sharing tools and tips with AI software and apps. And we're all really, we commit to hiring people that are excited about those trends. And, I think that's the way that we one day, not that I have any aspirations of ever becoming the part of the man, but certainly growth in our own right, I think will come at being on the bleeding edge of innovation. And I think, like Eric said, this is a considered purchase. These are very collaborative client relationships that it's cliche, but we look at as more partnerships than we do vendor agency. And I think as soon as we start to see prospective clients asking questions or challenging us that feels like they don't fully understand the consultative nature of the relationship, we actually have been very, what's the opposite of shy? Right. We've been overly overt about clients not being a good fit for us. More
we say
and more.
large and in charge.
Yeah. And I think, you get that from a lot of years of success and confidence and frankly, just knowing who's a good culture fit for your business.
Yeah, I think this shiny object of AI right now is very disruptive for a lot of people. And I feel like our sales and marketing leaders out there are looking for the comfort and confidence. And it can be very persuasive to think that these tools are easy and make business planning easy, make data projects easy. And maybe it's just, again, shifting that conversation. Thank you so much, everyone. This is such a wonderful conversation. We'll meet back here for part 3 of this important discussion.